This program, while curated to help you improve your health, contains general advice and should not replace the individual advice of your medical practitioner.
Fertility is a vital sign of female well-being.
I think the hardest part with fertility treatments is actually the mindset part of it.
It can take up to 9 months, sometimes up to 12 months, for women to get pregnant after the pill.
Your body is very cleverly and intelligently protecting you. It's making a really wise decision that your body can't handle a pregnancy right now.
The likelihood of those things is lessened if you can go into pregnancy with a much more robust and healthy vaginal microbiome.
In life, it's normal to have ups and downs. But what do we do when we get stuck? I've always been fascinated by the healing journey. Why do some people get better while others fail to make the shift? In Season 2 of The Shift, we explore the intricate world of women's health and help you discover how to balance your hormones and understand yourself better so that you can truly thrive.
The menstrual cycle is a vital sign of female well-being.
My mum just used to say, "Oh, Nan, I'm so sorry. It's part of being a woman."
I would like a call to arms for women to know that their intuition isn't lying to them.
I'm Katherine Maslen, and this is The Shift. As someone who has worked with couples experiencing infertility for well over a decade, I have seen firsthand the devastation that this can cause for people. Of all the health issues that women experience, infertility is arguably the one that hits them the hardest. As practitioners on the other end of this, myself and the team at Shift have helped thousands of couples and singles to navigate the highs and lows of the fertility journey. I have seen the emotional toll that it can take, and also the joy that happens when this seemingly insurmountable obstacle is overcome. From a public health perspective, infertility is an increasingly alarming issue. It mirrors other chronic health issues that are on the rise as a result of the lifestyle that we lead and the environment we are exposed to as modern humans. As I read the research and see the impacts of infertility firsthand on my patients, I can't help but wonder what the future holds for us in this space. With the decline in fertility, we've also seen the concurrent advances of assisted reproductive technologies such as IVF help to tip the scale somewhat. But if you look at the data, we're headed down a very precarious path when it comes to the survival of our species. I touched on this in episode 7 of The Shift Season 1, which was called The Decline of Our Species, Are We on the Way Out? Dramatic title, I know, but when I looked into the research on the epidemic increases in chronic disease, I was truly shocked with just how far down this path we were headed. The statistics around infertility are equally as alarming, and I'm going to present an argument in this episode that a health revolution for ourselves and the planet is not only necessary for our health and the prevention of life-shortening diseases, but also for the survival of our species. But before I do that, I want to reassure you that there is so much that we can do. And I'll also provide some very practical advice in this episode so that you can take action to enhance your own fertility and offset some of the issues that we're going to discuss. Let's take a closer look at the data around how many babies we are having and what happens when these levels drop. A recent study published in The Lancet used advanced modelling to predict our future total fertility rate. This number must be greater than 2.1 for our population to increase. By 2050, in just under 30 years' time, it is predicted that our total fertility rate will fall to lower than the replacement levels in 151 countries, and that by 2100, we will begin to see a significant decline in world population. In the year 2100, my daughter will be 97 years old, assuming that she lives that long. These impacts will be felt in our children's lifetimes, and the choices that we make now will determine what the outcome will be. In this episode, we're going to discuss some of these issues in depth and also present some solutions as well. Let's get started with Dr. Felice Gersh, an integrative OB/GYN who has been working with women for over 30 years. I asked her what she'd observed when it came to fertility over her years of practice.
Fertility is on the downside. Male and female both are having problems. Now, I can tell you in the area where I live, there are IVF clinics everywhere because so many women are having fertility problems. Now, they usually say, well, because women are delaying childbirth, and that is certainly part of the issue. But you have to recognize that these are women also who were often put on birth control pills when they were very young teens, and then now when they're like 30 or so, they're deciding they want to have kids, and they were never right to begin with. They had problems when they first started out in puberty. And so they've never really developed into healthy women. They really have not. And now it's showing because, once again, just as the menstrual cycle is a vital sign of female well-being, fertility is a vital sign of female well-being. Through the young years, the fertility years, I am seeing rampant increases in problems. And we can talk about polycystic ovary syndrome, which is the most common endocrine disorder of women, which is bursting at the seams with growth, unfortunately. It's a worldwide epidemic. I'm seeing it. Every country on the planet is dealing with PCOS now. And it's really an endocrine disorder that links metabolic function to reproductive function. So I consider it the poster child for the perfect disease condition that shows exactly how fertility, reproduction, and metabolic health are all one. That if one is bad, the other is bad. How it really all links the whole thing together.
So fertility is just a reflection of our underlying state of health. I feel like many women, they often go straight from hormonal birth control, which they've been on for many, many, many years. They don't know anything about their natural cycle or ovulation or anything. And so when they start to try for a pregnancy, they're really learning right from the beginning the basics of what should be happening in their bodies. You know, there's lots of technology now, like period tracking apps and other things that can help women. But sometimes I think that that's actually another layer which disconnects them from their bodies, because they might come and see me and they'll say, yeah, I've been ovulating. My app says I'm ovulating here. And I'll say, but have you noticed any signs in your body? Have you been doing your temperature? Have you been noticing your cervical mucus? Have you been noticing the way you're feeling? And they're like, no, they're still disconnected from their body because they haven't learned those signs. And I would love it if, as well as learning about contraception for our young women, that they were also taught about fertility and about why ovulation and healthy cycles matter, not just for fertility later on, but also because of the health-giving effects of hormones and things like that, when we're making hormones monthly. But because the status quo is just hormonal contraceptive until you decide you want to have a baby, they don't get any of those messages at all. So I guess the waiting till they're older, effective hormonal contraception. Again, I see women who are often doing lots of exercise, often under eating, having hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is where their brain sort of shuts off the signaling to the ovaries, and they're struggling to fall pregnant because of just not understanding how exercise, diet, stress can affect our ovulation. And again, living in a society that rewards constant doing, and fitting into a box with size of how your body should be and things like that, and not nurturing and listening to their bodies. So I generally encourage women to spend some time, if they have it, to get to know what's actually happening with their own cycles. And if you are using a contraceptive hormonal drug, to maybe go off it a few years earlier than when you want to conceive, so that A, you can learn how to track your natural cycles, and also you can start to uncover if there is a problem with your ovulation, because say underlying polycystic ovarian syndrome or endometriosis or any number of other things, there's actually time to address it and potentially fix it without going to IVF. I'm also seeing a lot of male factor infertility with sperm counts dropping. I think that's standard across many industrialized countries, probably because of our environmental exposures and things like that. But men don't get any education either about how their fertility, their sperm health, is a consequence of their underlying health.
That was Dr. Peter Wright, a Brisbane-based gynaecologist and fertility specialist. As someone that has also been working with patients with infertility, I've also seen this landscape changing in the past decade. There's been a lot of talk about women waiting until they're older to get pregnant, and this is certainly a huge factor. One of these is egg quality. When a woman reaches approximately 35 years of age, her egg quality declines quite steeply, leading to a lower pregnancy rate. This doesn't mean you can't get pregnant, but that the pregnancy rates per cycle will become lower with age. Let's take a look at how this works. Women are born with all of the eggs that they will produce over a lifetime. In fact, you'll have these eggs in utero, and we know that the health of your mother and her exposures during pregnancy with you can also impact your fertility at this time. You will have about 1 million eggs when you're born, around 27,000 at the age of 37, and around 1,000 by the time you're 51. Of all of these, only 300 to 400 will ever mature and make it to the stage where they could become a baby. For reasons we don't fully understand, the rest will undergo a process of degeneration and will never be ovulated. While egg numbers decline, so does the quality of the chromosomes and the DNA contained within each egg. Ovarian reserve is a term used to describe how many viable eggs are left in the ovaries, which becomes important for those parents that are trying to conceive in their late 30s and early 40s. Ovarian reserve is genetically regulated, but research has shown that it can be negatively impacted by stress, exposure to radiation and environmental toxicity, even when exposed while you are in your mother's womb. Therefore, in addition to the natural decline in fertility as we age, we have a lifetime of stress and exposures on top of this, which has compounded the problem significantly. Chromosomal abnormalities in eggs are actually quite common, but as you age, the incidence increases. In a woman in her 20s, you'd expect about 25% of her eggs to have abnormalities. This increases to 40% by the time they are 35, and in her 40s, 3/4 of her eggs will be likely to have chromosomal abnormalities. Chromosomal abnormalities do not necessarily make a woman infertile, but it can mean that each menstrual cycle is not as likely to produce a viable egg. Chromosomes are the part of the egg that make up the genetic DNA, the imprint of what your baby will grow from. Chromosomal abnormalities can lead to issues like Down syndrome, but most of the time your body will recognise a problem and self-terminate the pregnancy. The most common cause of miscarriage is a chromosomal abnormality of either the egg or the sperm, which stops the embryo from continuing to develop. Women also have a decline in their mitochondrial DNA as they age. This is needed for energy to grow the baby, and abnormalities also increase with age. This is likely why the use of supplements such as coenzyme Q10 can be helpful, as they help mitochondrial function. These statistics can be quite shocking if you're in this age group, and although these factors do make things trickier, they may not be the end of the road. What we know from research is that environmental factors play a huge role. That is, your diet, your stress levels, and what you're exposed to from the environment. Research now suggests that your eggs go through a process of maturation in the ovaries that spans over 9 months. The quality of that egg that is released is accumulation of all your health and environmental influences over that time. This is why it is so important to address your whole health as part of any fertility plan. Your egg is only half the story, and we're going to dive into male fertility shortly. But for now, I wanted to ask Dr. Jolene Brighton, naturopath and author of Beyond the Pill, if there was any evidence to show that the widespread use of birth control has contributed to the fertility problem.
So at this time, we do not have any research to show that birth control leads to infertility. But there are lots of women reporting this. So why might that be? A really big reason is we're using birth control for symptom management without ever asking why those symptoms are there in the first place. So if you have a woman with polycystic ovarian syndrome, she may have acne, started birth control at 14 for acne, her irregular periods, and then at 34, she wants to get pregnant. She comes off of birth control and now she's unable to. Well, it makes sense that she's going to look at the pill and be like, that's what did it to me. Or look at, her IUD. That's what did it to me. And yet PCOS is associated with infertility. The same is true for endometriosis. So maybe she started birth control because her periods were excruciatingly painful. Thank goodness we have this tool to get her out of pain, because for endo women, some of them spend 2 weeks out of every month just in excruciating pain, not being able to live life. When we put that into perspective, that's 6 months out of the year. That's half of her life is gone due to pain. She may have been put on birth control. No one investigated. Nobody treated her with any other means. And when she got into her 30s, decided she wanted to have a baby, Now she has found there's adhesions. Now she's unable to conceive. Same is true with hypothyroidism. That can present with irregular periods. And I've seen plenty of patients be given birth control to regulate their period. I'm doing air quotes here because it doesn't actually regulate your period. It just shuts that whole business down. And it turns out that she's actually hypothyroid, and that's what needed to be addressed. Hypothyroidism is also associated with infertility. So there's that piece. There may be a pre-existing condition. There's also the other piece of why do we use birth control? Like if we're not managing symptoms, to delay conception. And so women may be delaying conception up until like 38, come off because they were told as a teenager, when you come off, you'll be able to get pregnant right away. That's actually not true. Clinically, I don't find that is true, that you'll get pregnant right away. When you look at the research with the pill, your average woman, nothing going on, no pre-existing conditions. It can take 3 months to start ovulating regularly and having your period after you stop birth control. If you had PCOS, it could take 6 months. If you're on the depot shot, it could actually take 18 months for your entire system to get back online to be able to get pregnant. And we also see, that the endometrial lining. So as I talked about before, the down regulation in receptors so that you don't grow your endometrial lining, that can take time to heal as well. So these are temporary, okay? There's nothing that's been shown to say this is long-term, there's no coming back from this. But if you stop the pill or you are like, I'll just stop my depot shot, I won't get the next one, in your late 30s, well, you might not have the time to conceive naturally. And you might be going into reproductive technology, which thank goodness that we have access to that. So it's important to understand that birth control was designed for young, healthy females to space pregnancy or delay pregnancy. And now we are kicking ass as women, and we are CEOs of companies, and we are ruling the world, but we're also delaying conception until our 30s and sometimes our late 30s, early 40s. And so it's important to understand that there may be a temporary hiccup when you come off in your ability to conceive. And so if you're going to plan on having a kid in the near future, then it's a good idea to talk to your doctor about coming off. With my patients, my ideal is like, can we spend 2 years? Like that, I think, is ideal to get what I call pre-baby body ready. Can we just like clean house, get everything ready, like just really work on all of that? Because yes, there's the physiology, but there's also the like, what's your relationship like? You should do some work on that. I don't know if you have kids, but I have one, and I will tell you, is the fastest way to accelerate relationship growth, because all of your problems that we're like, I can deal, you can't deal. You're like, no, we got to fix this. This is a problem, because you're so dependent on each other at that point. So, but 2 years might not be realistic. 1 year. So if you're on depot, you want to get on a different method, at least 18 months in advance. If you are using the pill, the patch, the ring, IUD, you really want to be looking at like 6 months or more. There is research showing that it can take up to 9 months, sometimes up to 12 months for women to get pregnant after the pill. So it really just depends. And we just have to be honest in planning for that. Otherwise, when you come off, you're going to be like, birth control made me infertile. Well, we don't have any evidence of that. The evidence we do have says it's temporary, and it may very well be the timing of everything, which is why we just have to have these open conversations and be real about it. Because if you're 35 right now, you're going to want to start planning for that transition off and when you're going to want to become pregnant. Really, 6 months is the minimum. And for women who are really like wanting to go all in, we can hit 2 years. But I also understand, as a woman who never wanted a baby and then wanted a baby, you want a baby like yesterday. Like there is no like, oh yeah, let me just wait 3 to 6 months. You're like, no, I need a baby. I'm not holding a baby. There's a problem here. So it is something that we also have to just meet people where they're at, of like, okay, what's realistic for you in terms of preconception care? And really, if you're on birth control now, understand it is depleting folate, B12, and crucial nutrients for fetal development. If you're on a pharmaceutical that, can deplete these nutrients, and you know that the contraceptive pill is only 91% effective with typical use, 9 out of 100 women will become pregnant in a year. If that's true for you, you want to be on a multivitamin or prenatal to be replenishing those nutrient stores, because by the time you find out you're pregnant, that baby already needed folate. So we want to be making sure that we are first doing no harm. And so if you're sexually active with males and you're relying on the pill, if you're on the IUD, your odds of getting pregnant are really low. But my goodness, they're like, every time I say that, I'm going to say that. Somebody's going to write a comment and be like, nope, happened to me, because it does happen. Nature is smart and it finds a way. It really does. So it's just really important to understand that we don't have any research that says that it causes infertility, but those are some of the reasons why we may have the perspective that it does. And I'm very cautious in talking about this because, like I said earlier, there may be a study that comes out in the future and shows in a certain population, this certain demographic, it may very well be a contributing factor. We don't have that research right now, but when we do, that's going to change the conversation and we will be able to advise women better. I mean, we all know the woman who got pregnant on birth control. We all know the woman that got pregnant immediately coming off of birth control. That also does happen. So I'm not saying like, oh, it's impossible, but it may take you longer and you want to plan for it.
This is really good advice, and I agree with Dr. Brighton. Given that when you stop birth control, it could take a while for things to come back online or to diagnose any issues, you want to give yourself a little more time if you can. Let's look at some of the other factors that could cause things to go wrong. Hormonal imbalances definitely play a role, so let's do a quick review of what to look for when it comes to a healthy menstrual cycle. It's really important to track the regularity of your menstrual cycle and any symptoms that may be occurring, as this can give you vital information about what is wrong. I'd suggest listening to episode 3 of The Shift, where you can learn about how the menstrual cycle works and what is healthy, and episodes 5, 6 and 7, where we discuss the various things that can go wrong. We discuss how issues like PCOS and endometriosis can contribute to infertility, but imbalances in your sex hormones can also throw things out of whack. You can also download our free cycle tracking guide and charts at theshiftclinic.com/links. We covered stress extensively in episode 9, so now let's take a look at the impact of stress on fertility. Here is author and Doctor of Chinese Medicine, Nat Kringoudis.
If your body isn't swaying with ebbs and flows of stress, then it's probably not actually doing what it should anyway. So what my point is in saying that is that your body's not failing you if it's responding to stresses around you. It's actually doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So for example, if that ovulation was to be delayed because of stress and that pushed your period out, that's your body doing exactly what it's supposed to do, because in any given minute of any day, your body is basically trying to fall pregnant. You're like basically set up as a baby-making machine until you start to show signs of menopause. It's always working for that to happen. So if you bear that in mind, if there is a heightened stress around the time of ovulation and your body goes, oh, you know what, we're not going to do this today, we'll come back and we'll try in a few days when things have calmed down, that should have a consequence of them pushing out when the period arrives, because that luteal phase, we want it to be a certain amount of days.
If you're curious about your hormonal health, take our quiz. You'll get a report with insights into some key areas you need to look at when it comes to getting your hormones in alignment, as well as some handy tips to get you started. Go to theshiftclinic.com/links. It's easy to forget that we are animals, and that in other animals, fertility follows a very predictable pattern. In good times where there is ample food, water, and lack of threats, animals happily reproduce, but in times of famine, their fertility can decline. Many animals will have seasons where they produce lots of offspring and others where birth rates are low. To your body, reproduction is the least important function. Keeping you alive is the number one aim. And when we're experiencing chronic stress, your body thinks you're in danger and the energy will be diverted away from non-essential organs like the gut and reproductive system in order for you to survive. To get pregnant, we need to get out of flight or fight and into feeding and fornicating, which is all about digestion and reproduction. Again, be sure to listen back to episode 9 of this season, where we deep dive into the reasons you're stressed and what to do about it. One stressor that goes overlooked is that of calorie deprivation, which can happen as a result of not getting our macronutrients right, under-eating or over-exercising. I asked Dr. Peter Wright what she'd observed, as at Shift it's something that we see a lot in our fertility clients.
So I see this so often, and it's actually one of the most difficult things to treat, because often some of these behaviors, so calorie restriction and over-exercising, because we live in a world where social media tells us that, especially our young women who are exposed to this stuff on a daily basis from really, really young age. You know, even prepubertal girls now are not liking their body and thinking that they need to be in smaller bodies, which is just terrifying. And so under-eating, not consuming enough calories for your body. So the hypothalamus is like the CEO of our body. So it manages all of our hormonal systems, including our reproductive hormones. So the hypothalamus takes in information from the environment. So it takes in information like, is my person getting enough calories? Is it getting the right kind of calories? Is it getting enough protein, enough carbohydrates, and enough fat? Is it stressed? And that could be physical stress, so over-exercising, could be psychological stress. And it takes in all of that information and it will do a bit of a calculation. So if you're under-eating, exercising too much, it will say, okay, there's a deficit here, and because reproduction takes a lot of energy and it's going to result in a baby that requires a lot of energy. And unlike kangaroos who can like start a pregnancy and then find that they're in starvation mode, there's not enough food around, they can halt the pregnancy and the little joey can just kind of sit there in like a sort of static position until there's adequate calories around, and then it can regrow. Yeah, which is really cool. People can't do that. So because humans can't do that, the brain is really clever. So I think the key thing to remember is if you're over-exercising or under-eating and you stop getting your periods, it's not like there's something wrong with you. Your body is very cleverly and intelligently protecting you. It's making a really wise decision that your body can't handle a pregnancy right now. So it just switches your reproductive system off. So it stops the hormones from your brain to your ovaries to release an egg. And so that's what it does. And women need to get like 2,000 calories a day just to live before you do exercise. So I think it's really important to be listening to your body, nourishing your body with healthy, real food and not restricting. And if you notice that you are getting into a lot of exercise or you're changing your diet and your period does go off. This is why I think the period is such a valuable sign for health. And in fact, the American College of Obstetrics have written a paper on it saying that the period should be a vital sign of health, especially in adolescent girls. If you are doing any of those things and you find that your period goes missing, you can recalibrate and say, oh, okay, maybe I need to back off on the CrossFit 7 days a week. Because I see this and I see that this is ingrained, and these women come to see me, they have no body fat, they do CrossFit, 6 days a week, really under eating for what they're doing. And then combined with that, they may be not sleeping as much, having stress at work, they've not got their period. Now, because those pathways of like the endorphins from exercise, the firmly held beliefs about how their body should be, the fact that they've not listened and they've not trusted their bodies for such a long time, it's incredibly confronting and difficult for them to change their behavior. And so you can say you need to eat more and you need to exercise less and you need to do just yoga and walking. It's so hard. And often with those women, I would recommend actually working with someone to psychologically support them at the same time, and or a dietitian as well, because that can be incredibly hard. And I could count on like numerous fingers the number of women who've just hated me when I've said this to them. They'll say to me, give me IVF treatment, give me fertility drugs, and often they're much more likely to want to do that rather than get their bodies back on track. But to force something that their bodies are saying is not safe. But the number of women who come to see me after 3 months or so of doing that and they hate me and they're like, oh, I hate you, and my period still hasn't come back and I've gained 5 kilos. And I'll say, okay, let's do a scan. And, the number of times they've been pregnant, or I can do a scan. And so the reason why they haven't had their period is because they're pregnant, which is great. Or we do a scan and we can see that the lining of the uterus is thickening, which tells us they've got estrogen, they've got a beautiful follicle, helping them to reconnect with their body by actually seeing what's going on. Like, I love that bit about my job, so that they can see their ovaries just doing nothing, and then in the uterus just like a little thin little line, so no beautiful juicy endometrium. And then they can see with those lifestyle changes that that's all changed and then their body's working again, and they can then start to trust it is amazing, but it is very hard to change, which is why it would be so good if we could change that early and have young women understand how those things affect their cycles, and especially in schools where they're doing, exercise 5 days a week. And my stepdaughter's school, she was telling me the sports teacher says, sometimes people lose their periods, but it's fine. It's not fine. It's a sign that you're overdoing it. It's absolutely not fine at all. And there's so many examples now just in the last couple of years of elite athletes actually using their cycle to train and using, the first part of their cycle where there's high levels of estrogen, which is an anabolic hormone, so it helps to build muscle, and doing more of their high intensity training then and more of their slower weight stretching in the luteal phase, rather than seeing it as a weakness, but actually using it for the magic superpowers that it has throughout the different cycle and going, if our athletes are losing their period, that's a problem. That's a sign of an energy deficit or, too much exercise, and we need to fix that.
If you listen to episode 8, you'd remember that endocrine disrupting chemicals are one of the major drivers of the rising levels of women's health issues that we see today. I want to share some of the research around fertility here so that you can see just how important this part of health is. BPA or bisphenol A is a chemical found in many plastics. You can find it in plastic bottles and containers, the inside of canned food, and the lining of paper coffee cups. In an extended study that followed 74 women through 237 IVF cycles, it was found that urinary levels of BPA were associated with decreased numbers of eggs collected, a decreased number of normally fertilised eggs, and also decreased circulating estradiol, and also decreased circulating estrogen. The findings were dose dependent. The higher the BPA, the more significant the changes. Phthalates are chemicals found in soft plastics and fragrances. They are found in perfumes, cosmetics, cleaning products, and a lot of the personal care products that you would be using on your body. Studies have found that high levels of phthalates are associated with miscarriage risk. It has also been shown that women who undergo premature ovarian failure have higher levels of phthalates in their blood than normal cycling women. Research shows that phthalate levels can negatively impact IVF outcomes, and that these impacts can be seen in both men and women. The pesticides in our food supply also impact fertility, with a study from Harvard finding that women who ate organic food were more likely to be successful in their IVF cycles than their pesticide-eating counterparts. I could continue, but we covered environmental toxicity in detail in episode 8, so go back and take a listen if you missed it. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is that you need to take a look at your environment as part of this picture. Switching to natural products in your home is very important, as is eating organic food and being mindful of other toxins in the environment. If you need some help in this area, you might want to check out my Environmental Toxin Masterclass, which is available at theshiftclinic.com. Let's now move our attention to the male side of the equation and take a look at sperm health.
There's no question we're starting to see a concerning impact of modern life, whether that's environmental toxins or probably insulin resistance and microbiome on reproductive health. That's affecting men as much as women. Men possibly even more than women, actually, because sperm health, generally sperm morphology and sperm counts in particular, is in free fall. It's in quite a worrying. Over the last several decades, there's been a decline in male fertility, which researchers are not quite sure where the bottom is. They're not sure if that's going to decline all the way to zero or where that's going to stop. 50% of the time, the problem is male. And when there's unexplained infertility, I would estimate that it's more than 50% of the time it's male. Because the semen analyses that are done, certainly the ones I've seen done for my patients, are not very detailed. They're kind of like, that's good enough. That's roughly in the ballpark of enough sperm. But actually, it takes a lot of sperm, and not just any old sperm. Sperm morphology, the genetic quality of the sperm is important for achieving a natural pregnancy.
It takes 2 people to make a baby, and I'm going to present some information about male fertility for you here. The biggest issue that I can see for our future fertility is the fact that male fertility is steeply on the decline. Male sperm counts have dropped by over 50% in the last 40 years and continue to drop at an alarming rate. Earlier we spoke about environmental factors that can impact women's health, and these same chemicals are wreaking havoc on male sperm counts too. Professor Shana Swan is a researcher that's been looking into environmental toxicity and sperm counts for some time. What she has found is that we're beginning to see physical changes in the genitals of both males and females. The space between the anus and the testes is associated with fertility rates. In men, it should be long, and what Dr. Swan and her associates have found is that over the years this area is lengthening and it is associated with the level of phthalate exposure. So, like it has with women, the decline in fertility in men has been strongly linked to environmental exposures of endocrine-disrupting chemicals. A cool fact is that when the sperm enters the egg will repair DNA damage to an extent. But the more damaged the sperm's DNA, the more difficult the task and the less likely that this repair by the egg will be enough. Let's take a walk through how sperm is developed and what can go wrong. Unlike women who are born with all of their eggs, sperm are created from scratch every day in the testes. Through the process of spermatogenesis, sperm are created in tiny tubules within the testes. This process begins about 2.5 months before the sperm is ejaculated, and there are many facets to the process. The production of sperm is mediated on several levels by hormones, namely testosterone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle-stimulating hormone. When looking at male fertility, a semen analysis can give clues to what is going wrong. For healthy fertility, we're looking for good sperm counts, motility, and morphology. Males make around 1,500 sperm per second. Every minute of every day, the body is manufacturing billions of sperm. It is considered normal for semen to have 40 to 300 million sperm per millimetre of ejaculate. Anything below 15 million is considered to be low by current standards. In the 1970s, the average was 99 million per millilitre of semen, and now the average sits at about 47 million per millimetre of semen. This is a 50% drop in under 50 years and one of the key areas to look at for male fertility. You would think that since there are millions of sperm and you only need one, that this would not present a problem. But the fact is that most of the sperm in a semen sample are not normal. Morphology is the structure of the sperm, and the lower this number, the less available healthy, normal sperm. But even having a normal morphology reading isn't enough because the DNA of the sperm can still be damaged. With male infertility, there can be many compounding factors, such as issues with production leading to low counts, which can be caused by things like environmental toxicity, excessive heat, or poor nutrition. Then you have issues with motility, which can be caused by poor nutrition and damage to the sperm. And even if there are plenty and they can swim, the DNA may have been damaged by things like toxins in the body. One of the biggest issues that we see at Shift is that there is an inequitable focus on the female partner in the infertility journey, when there is so much that can be done for male fertility. There is lots of research for the use of supplements and herbal medicines to help improve sperm counts, morphology, and motility. There is also very robust research on diet and male fertility. For example, it was found that if the male partner consumed soda, either sugar-free or regular, that the chance of pregnancy for the couple was much reduced. Stress can also impact sperm counts. Research shows that men who are stressed have lower sperm counts and reduced motility. This is a huge factor that is not often addressed. Here's what naturopath Dr. Lara Bryden has to say.
So sperm count is in free fall. And for me, as a clinician, one of the most concerning things about this male fertility side of things is that women bear the burden of that, right? So the current conventional treatment for bad sperm is for a woman to undergo IVF. And so I see my female patients undergoing lots of interventions that potentially have long-term effects on their own health, not just their ability to have a baby, but their health because of the problem with sperm, right? Like I would really like to see research catch up with this a little bit, and let's all talk about some ways that we can improve, male fertility without subjecting women to interventions like fertility drugs and IVF.
At the Shift Clinic, our fertility treatments include both partners. Without treating both of you, it is unreasonable that we can get the results we are looking for, and it places too much emphasis on one person. If you're trying to conceive, I would strongly suggest addressing the health of both partners. even if on the outside it would seem that one has more of an issue than the other. Your combined fertility will improve the better that each of your health is. So it's important to do what you can to detoxify, minimise stress, and address both partners' health. Poor sperm health is also linked to recurrent miscarriage. In a study looking at women that had had 3 consecutive pregnancy losses, it was found that their male partners had 50% more DNA damage than the men of the partners that had not had recurrent miscarriages. With miscarriage, it is rare that the male partner will be examined at all. The focus falls on the female, when in fact this is quite erroneous. A study following over 42,000 pregnancies from 1990 to 2011 found that the incidence of pregnancy loss or miscarriage was also increasing. So what we have is a decrease in sperm counts and an increase in pregnancy loss. This isn't a good recipe for our ability to reproduce, and some very important decisions need to be made now if we want to preserve future generations. IVF can only take us so far, and I'm concerned about our children's future and my daughter's ability to have a baby in 20 years' time when she wants to start a family. We've got a lot of experts presenting a lot of technical information in this episode, so I wanted to get the story of someone who has actually overcome some of these issues to go on and conceive and birth a healthy baby. I interviewed Willow, a Shift Clinic member who worked with us to help conceive her first son, as well as overcome some other health issues that you'll hear her share with you. Here is Willow's account of working with a Shift fertility naturopath, and also some advice from her as to how you can navigate these waters yourself.
So I saw Nicole and we had a very comprehensive consult, an appointment, and she took quite a few bloods and she identified several issues, like my hormone levels were completely off. I had really low progesterone or high estrogen. And she said, essentially, the outcome was your hormones are completely imbalanced. And this is why, A, you're getting really bad menstrual cramps. B, you're also getting really bad cystic acne. And I said, okay, and how does that get treated? And she said, we can try acupuncture and I can put you on some herbal formula and also some additional vitamins. And I said, look, let's give it a shot. I stuck through it. And I think after a month, I started to see a pretty big shift and an improvement with menstrual cramps and also my acne. And I stayed with Nicole for several months. And I'd say probably from 3 months onward is when I really saw a shift in the way that my body was adjusting to these formulas and these supplements, and I started to see results and I was so happy. So my partner and I, at the time, he was 29 and I was 30. And I went to Nicole and I said, look, Nicole, we're probably in the process now where we want to go and try to conceive. Can you sort of get me some supplements that will help with that? And she said, yep, absolutely. So I probably saw Nicole at that time because I've been seeing her for months on end with other issues, but for the fertility, probably a good 6 months where she was helping me get really healthy on the inside. And I said, okay, Nicole, look, it's now August 2018. I said, this is probably the month that we'll probably try. In the meantime, as well, I was seeing Shift for some acupuncture sessions as well, because I heard that really helped prepare the uterus to be receptive of potentially getting an egg and fertilizing it. And Nicole said, okay, look, good luck. Let me know how you go. It takes time kind of thing. And I said, yep, absolutely. And then 2 weeks later, I was like, holy I'm actually pregnant. So I went back to see Nicole that month because we had a monthly checkup. And I said, oh, Nicole, I think I'm pregnant. I was really surprised. And she goes, oh, yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, why wouldn't you be? And I said, I didn't realize it would just happen so easily. And I'm very naive at this time because I didn't know how the birds and the bees worked, clearly. And I was really fortunate and grateful. And like I said, I really attribute that to the supplements that she gave me, because I really don't think how else that could have happened at the time. I was working in a really stressful job in the legal field, and so was my partner. So we were stressed beyond stress. So she was giving me supplements to really help calm that stress, make me sleep at night because I wasn't sleeping. I also had quite a bit of anxiety around work as well. And I think she really helped sort of calm that down to prepare my body to achieve a pregnancy. Now, I know pregnancy is a topic on its own, and I know there's numerous women that struggle with fertility issues and getting pregnant. So I know that I'm extremely fortunate in this position that it happened for me so quickly. But as part of my journey, I also told Nicole that I wanted to really focus on getting a healthy, uterus and healthy eggs. So when I get to that point in my life that I'm able to conceive a healthy child. And I really think that she was the reason as to why that happened for me so quickly and right away. And I was just so happy for that to happen. I think you need to have faith in yourself that you can get better, and you need to be emotionally determined to be able to do that. So you need to understand that it's not going to be a quick fix, but if you have the determination and the patience to say, okay, for the next 12 months, I want to sit here and focus on X, Y, and Z. What is the plan for me to do that? And then following out that plan, I think will make you happy on the inside that you've done it. But you also have to have a really strong support network and system that can allow you to go and do that, because you'll have days where you're crying because something's not working out or you're just feeling more overwhelmed. So really put yourself in a position that allows you to flourish in that environment. What's next for me is another pregnancy, hopefully, this year, if possible. And I'd have a million babies if I could, but I think my age is probably not on my side at this stage. And then just really focusing on reducing my anxiety and just continuing to meditate on a daily basis, continuing to have gratitude for what I currently have, and really trying to minimize stress. And, that's with work, and that's also making sure that the people that you surround yourself with are extremely positive people and they don't bring stress into your life, and they're uplifting and grateful and supportive of the decisions you make. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on for now.
A big thank you to Willow for sharing her story with us. It makes me so happy to see our clients make their shift. And while I'm here, if you are a shift patient listening to this, thank you for being brave enough to lean in and shift your health. It isn't always easy, but it's definitely worth it. Let's now take a look at fertility treatments and perhaps the limitations of using this approach as a standalone treatment. I asked Nat Kringoudis what she had to say.
I think the actual issue is we have this preconceived idea that more than likely we're not going to be able to fall pregnant, even if we don't know, even if we have no reason to think that. I was guilty of that. I remember saying to my husband, look, I've never been pregnant, so I don't even know if I can be, but let's just try. And 1 month later, we were pregnant. And so I was like, right, well, that works, doesn't it? But I know that's not necessarily the case for everyone, but I still was of the opinion that I didn't know whether I could fall pregnant because I never had. And I think we've got to change this, because if we're going into fertility, even natural fertility, thinking this probably can't happen, your body really hears that. And so your body's sitting there going, oh, this probably can't happen. And so I think that's the first thing we have to overcome. I think by the time somebody gets to fertility treatments, they really don't have belief that their body can. And so that's really concerning, because that faith and wisdom in their body is kind of lost and they're handing it over to somebody else. Don't get me wrong, I think fertility treatments can be wonderful for many people, but I think where they fall short is they often don't look at, what's actually going on and why. We bypass that because we can use drugs to bypass this, we can use drugs to stimulate, we can use procedures to collect and then other procedures to implant, all the while not looking at why fertility mightn't be optimal. And so I would encourage anyone that's going through fertility treatment to really look at that. The amount of couples I see that are going through fertility treatment because of it being a male issue and sperm health is astounding, and sperm health really isn't that difficult to address. So I think the hardest part with fertility treatments is actually the mindset part of it, because I think that the other stuff all gets taken care of. Really, at the end of the day, do I see patients that are using fertility treatments too early? Of course, but that's not my place to tell them, I don't think you should do this. I'm always here to support people in their decisions, but I want to make them aware of the options and what they can do and why they might find themselves in that situation. And really, if people do commit to natural fertility, 9 times out of 10, they'll fall pregnant. And I think also that there's so much wisdom in natural fertility that can prepare people for assisted conception that really needs to be considered as well. So I think it does get, I think the problem is that if you're not aware and you don't have that awareness and you feel like your next step is IVF, a lot of people find themselves in that and on that roller coaster with absolutely no idea what they're in for and absolute faith that it'll work. And that's so often not the case for the same reason that natural fertility isn't working. So it really does come down to exploring the why and asking those questions and seeing what you can do around that first before jumping into those more invasive treatments. But that's not the role of an IVF clinic or an IVF doctor. So that's why I think where the disconnect happens. And if your IVF specialist was referring on to someone like me, then they wouldn't have a job. So I'm not saying that they're doing that knowingly. That's their job. They're arriving at work and doing what they're there for, and just as I am. But I think that there's a missing piece in the middle there, definitely.
Reviews help us know that we're hitting the mark with what you need and help us to shape future seasons. I'd really appreciate it if you could take a few moments to leave us a review. I would love to know what you think.
The Shift!
At Shift, we have a specialist fertility arm of the clinic called Shift Fertility. And we work collaboratively with many IVF clinics, as in many cases, people will need to go down this pathway at some point. If possible, early intervention is really important when it comes to your fertility. Being able to work on your health, your hormones, and also the health of the sperm before heading into these treatments is possible. It's a really tricky situation because with fertility, time can be of the essence. So it's about seeing what support you can build around yourself. I've created an easy-to-follow document with the latest infertility diet research. You can download this at theshiftclinic.com/links. Since the body is a whole and works synergistically, we need to look at what other areas can impact fertility indirectly. We spoke about the role of the gut microbiome when it comes to fertility and women's health issues earlier in this season, and also on season 1 of The Shift. When trying to enhance fertility, we want to ensure gut function is great, that our microbiome is healthy, and that we're getting adequate nutrition to make a healthy egg and a healthy sperm. We also need to address stress, thyroid health, detoxification, and immune health. You can learn more about these areas in previous episodes. Let's take a look now at the specific microbiomes of the reproductive system. Moira Bradfield is a naturopath with a specialty in vaginal health, in particular infections and dysbiosis of the vagina. If you recall from earlier in the season, we talked about the fact that we have microbiomes in our ovaries, uterus, fallopian tubes, which may all impact your fertility. It is nearly impossible to sample these sites in the body, but I wondered if addressing the vaginal microbiome could have positive impacts upstream.
The vagina, as a microbiome that is very easy to sample, does give us insights that we can act on. And certainly changing that microbial environment has benefits that I've seen definitely upstream and beyond. And so that's well worth going forth with, I think, in a practical sense, that it's a great place that we can start. And we do have a knowledge base, and it's much easier to understand and modulate as well. When we look at the vaginal microbiome, I mean, a lot of the time I'm modifying it because there are vaginal symptoms, and the upstream effect of that can be a lot of pelvic inflammation and pain, menstrual pain for people as well. And so that tends to improve. And with that, I mean, I would never just modulate a microbiome locally without addressing things holistically in the background. So there's always some component of hormonal change that we would be looking at, and looking at driving or reducing inflammation by using fatty acids, for example. So it is not just the role of modulating that microbiome. So again, but clinically, definitely more comfort and regulation of cycles and certainly fertility. I mean, I don't work in fertility per se. It's not an area that interests me, but people do conceive, obviously. And and we've had that happen when people have been working purely on recurrent infections as, you know, a barrier essentially to conception, and seeing then healthy pregnancies entail, and with much less risk associated with them, because, you know, things like Streptococcus B, which are very much aligned with pregnancy and preterm birth and premature rupture of membranes and cervical competency. If you can go into pregnancy with a much more robust and healthy vaginal microbiome, the likelihood of those things becoming an issue is lessened. We see that a vaginal microbiome that is more dominated by lactobacillus, particularly Lactobacillus crispatus, which is a very good lactic acid and hydrogen peroxide producer. When that is present, even in vagina conception by IVF, so when we're looking at embryo transfer, it tends to be more successful. And so it is something, again, that we're looking to shift that microbiome to become more lactobacillus dominant, because that is a microbiome that's dominated by crispatus. It's less likely to transition into disorder at different points in the month. So a lot of the research is around that. It's still very new research and certainly not definitive in any way. But again, if we strive for balance in this space, because it is the first interface of conception when we look at the introduction of semen, it's really important to have that microbial balance so that that's facilitated as well. We need to consider, if we're looking at semen or vaginal penile interaction, that homogenizes or shares the microbiome. Like, our microbiomes are always influenced by our environment and the people that we interact with. And so these two microbiomes interact as well. And the seminal microbiome and the penile microbiome, well, more so the seminal microbiome when we're looking at conception, when it is more lactobacillus dominated, we also see a healthier sperm profile. And when we look at the role of lactobacillus and their ability to be able to reduce pathogenic microbes, it certainly makes sense in terms of, how fragile sperm can be and the oxidative processes around that when in terms of inhibiting components of conception as well.
I think that we'll see more research in this area in the coming years, but microbial incompatibility is certainly not far-fetched, and it may have a lot to do with certain partners not being able to conceive together. There is so much to this picture that I can't list everything here, but I hope this episode has helped to give you some information and insight so that you can look further. If you need support, you can book a discovery and diagnosis session with one of our Shift fertility naturopaths by heading to theshiftclinic.com. While it might seem that we're fighting some pretty scary odds, I believe that there is so much that we can do to turn this around. At Shift, we are passionate about helping to empower you with the knowledge to work on these areas. So please share this podcast wide so that we can collectively make this shift. In the next episode of The Shift, we're going to cover sex, sexuality, and everything in between. We're going to deep dive into some really interesting and taboo topics, and I would not miss it if I were you.
Coming up on The Shift.
Sexuality is all-encompassing.
Sex was medicine.
I would say that most women have not had a positive experience of penetrative sex.
My big barometric question is, does sex leave you feeling rejuvenated, ecstatic, transformed, and like it changed your life?
An orgasm is this beautiful, euphoric feeling.
I always joke when people ask me, what supplement would you take to a deserted island? I would say, my clitoris and some lube.
This series is a production of the Shift Clinic. Hosted by Katherine Maslen. Music and sound design by Shade Furlong. Thank you to all of our experts. For more details on them, go to theshiftclinic.com.
We can be. We must be.
The first generation to end extreme poverty.
The generation most determined to fight injustice
and inequality.
The generation that saves the planet
from climate change.
And this is how we will get it done.
The global goals.
A 15-year plan for everyone, everywhere.
With no one left behind.
The global goals are a framework that collectively help us
support the health of our people
and the planet.
At Shift, we are ambassadors for the global goals.
This project supports global goal number 6.
Clean water and sanitation.
Every time you listen
to an episode of The Shift,
we provide a day's access to clean water
for a human in need
in Malawi, Africa.
Water is the foundation to health, and we believe
every human should have access
to clean, healthy water.
So please share this podcast wide
and keep tuning in
so we can impact those who need it the most.